Hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew. I'm here at Star Cottage Studio. And hopefully, you all have been having a good start to your week. We've had a busy start to our week. Um, Yesterday, it was super beautiful. It was cool and a little bit cloudy. Um, and today, it's a lot warmer. So we've been running around getting things done. William's at his other job, and I'm here now. So hopefully, all of you are doing well out there. We did a gemstone sell down yesterday. So if you missed any of that, you can watch the replay. I don't know how much would be left because it seems like people liked what they saw. So there were a lot of claims for yesterday. So if you didn't get a chance to play along, you can still watch the replay, but you never know what you're going to get. We might do another one coming up fairly soon. I've got some more stuff to share, so uh, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. I also have a lot of Monique, which is Indonesian glass, so maybe that might be of interest. So we'll see. All right, I see a couple people tuning in. I see Suzanne is watching. Hello, Suzanne. How are you doing today? Lorraine is watching. Hi, Lorraine. Terry B is watching. Howdy. Hopefully, you all are doing well out there. Harry's watching. Hey, Harry. Cindy's watching. Hey, Cindy. Norma's watching. Hey, Norma. So looks like a couple of folks have tuned in. I was super busy today, so I didn't really get a chance to prepare anything super extensive. Uh, but I kind of figured because we were working last week, we had our kind of play along with the people who bought stuff from Kit-a-palooza. And I thought it might be nice to hang out and do the kit that I didn't really get a chance to work with. I had two kits that I kind of pulled, and I got so caught up in talking with folks that I really didn't get a chance to make anything with the second kit. So I thought it would be nice to kind of hang out, mix stuff, and have a low pressure day. In theory, if I finish early enough, I'm going to do some weed eating around the cottage. I didn't really bring the right shoes for that, but oh well, we'll see what happens. And Cynthia is going to go live tonight after us. She's getting some cool things ready for you all. So be sure to check out the Green Girl Studios page and see what they have available. I see Marianne's watching. Hey, Marianne. Diane's watching. Hey, Diane. Cindy's watching. Cindy says fighting the heat over 100 out here in Walnut Creek today. Wow. That's super, super intense. It's warm today, but I don't think it's as warm as some of the other places out there. I think we're in maybe the late 80s. Or upper 80s. Tracy's watching. Hey, Tracy. Janet says, in theory. Yeah, that's one of the things I say. It's kind of like one of those things where I don't know how everything's always going to work out. So I always like to, um, hedge my bets and leave that little wiggle room in case it doesn't work out. And then, then people are less disappointed. Is Cynthia on YouTube? I don't know. I don't think so. But I can ask. Maybe Cynthia's watching and she can let folks know if she is, but I don't think she is. Marianne said mid 70s. In other words, perfect. Yeah. It was in the 70s not too long ago, a couple days ago, and it was beautiful. William and I decided to go on a walk, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, and it was so beautiful. Not too hot, not too cold. just right. Goldilocks style. Harry says 94 there. That's too much for me. Suzanne said, I used patina paints and painted my hands as well as finding. Oh, that's fun. Sometimes if you're worried about painting your hands, if you have gloves, that can help too. Because sometimes, you don't want to get your fingers messed up. I used to work at a restaurant right after I had a printmaking class. And that was one of the hardest things to keep my hands clean because they're like, well, just use your bare hand and scrub the ink off the plate. And then it would stain your cuticle. So it would look like you're like digging in the coal mine. And, sometimes when you're in a fancy restaurant, you don't want to see your server have crusty looking nails. So that was really hard to keep my hands clean. And so yeah, gloves help. Francis or Norma says, I just got my first Green Girl order yesterday and love the pieces. Oh, good. Robin says, hi, Andrew and gang. It's only 106 today, but more humid. It's gross. Yeah, that doesn't sound pleasant at all. Sometimes I fantasize about going to the Southwest and, I don't know, living my best Georgia O'Keeffe life out in the desert, but then people talk about 106-degree weather on a nice day, and that cures that pretty quick. Terry says, I would so do this. Tracy asks, how do we watch Cynthia? I would just assume you would go to the Green Girl Studios page, and it should be streaming there. I'm not 100% sure, but if Cynthia is watching, she can drop a link. Diane says, I wish it was still in the 70s here. Me too. It was really lovely yesterday. It was a little bit overcast, but it was still pretty. The temperature was nice. Dave asks, thoughts on fabric tape instead of hemming curtains? We actually have just talked about that. Our friend Diane, who's also watching, she ended up hemming our curtains. I seem to recall doing that at some point, using that fusible tape. But it kind of came up whenever I used it last, so that's why we didn't use it for the curtains this time. So if that makes any difference in your life, I don't know. Or just find a crafty friend around you and maybe they'll help you with your curtains as well. And then it will be a little bit more permanent. Norma says 93 there. Oh my. Suzanne says only 97 there. I know y'all were super, it was a lot hotter there before. Tracy says, thanks. I will try that. Good. Yeah, I don't know. I know she had messaged me earlier and said she was planning to go on because they don't have a regular time slot kind of thing. So they just kind of pop up. So we talked a little bit about it earlier, and that she was planning to post some prints. So if you all like her artwork, then this may be something to look forward to. And I think that they said that they were going to try to go on around 7. So if I find out or if Cynthia pops up, she can let people know because that would be nice to support my family. Janet says in the 70s here today. Today we were in 70s here today. Yesterday we were in the 50s. Yeah, it was super chilly here yesterday. Night. It was kind of nice though. And then today it's a lot warmer. So yeah. All right. So, yeah, hopefully you all are doing well. I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll start working on stuff. How about that? Who's ready? All right. I'm going to flip it around so you're going to see the ceiling for a second. All right. So you can see how it's kind of messy around the edges of the work surface. We've got some Green Girl Studios that we showed a couple days ago. We restocked the online store with some designs. So if you haven't seen already, you can go to allegorygallery.com and you can see all of the goodies there that we have restocked from Green Girl Studios because we got quite a few different designs, and they were super happy that they got a chance to add them. Because sometimes when it's busy in the shop, they don't really get a chance to add as many things as they would like. So there you go. All right. Let's see if I can get closer. So this is one of the kits. I'm not sure what number it is. Um, but it's one of the kits that we debuted during Kit-a-palooza. We had a lot of fun with Kit-a-palooza, so maybe we'll do it again. In this kit, there are these check glass spikes. Those were really popular for a hot minute. People were doing some really cool kind of edgy punk glam kind of designs. I know Sherry Serafini and Kinga Nichols, they all did different designs using these, and they were really cool. I like them. They're a little bit edgy, because they've got kind of that little bit badass look to them. But check glass, and they look almost black, but they're actually a green color, a super dark green color. We've got some vintage check glass here, which is nice. These little rounds. They're in kind of an iced tea color. And then we have some vintage check glass tortoiseshell beads. These are tortoiseshell oval beads. And here's some stones. This is an agate, and they've probably enhanced this so that it brings out those little cracks in it. And this is an antique check glass bead. And then I've got some Venetian glass right here. They kind of glow because they have that core, that sparkly core inside. And then I have some more check glass in this kind of snakeskin finish. So, yeah. Whenever I make the kits, I tend to put pairs in just in case people are interested in making earrings. So I imagine I'll be making some earrings today. What do you think? What do you think? Um, all right. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe cut this open so I can use those a little bit more readily. Let's hope that I have the cutters over here. Oh, here they are. All right. Cindy asked if I said Tinga Nipples. No, I said Kinga Nichols. Kinga Nichols. She's a designer who does these really painterly seed bead pieces that are a little bit quirky. Harry says, I made a bunch of vampire smile necklaces with those spikes. Suzanne says, earrings sound great. Awesome. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these cutters, and I know not as festive, Cindy. I know no nipple tassels today. At least not that I'm making, but I used to work in this place called the Slipper Slipper Room. Slipper Room. I think it was called Slipper Room. It's been a long time. And there was a performer named World Famous Bob, and she had things that she would attach, and she could make them move in alternate directions. So there you go. All right, so I've opened that up. I've got some head pins off to the side here. This color palette to me kind of lends towards a more yellow golden color. So I'm going to be using these brass head pins. If you ever need anything like this, like head pins or lobster claws or soft flex or whatever you need, that's like a staple. And if we don't have it online, we definitely have things in store that are not online. If you watched last week, we did a store tour on Sunday evening. We took folks around the store, and really, we only kind of dipped our toe into what we have on offer there. So I know it was a long store tour, it was like 2 hours long, but there was still more stuff that we really kind of just skated over real quick. And so if you do need anything, just let us know. You can always email us at info@allegorygallery.com and just send us a message and or an email and say, hey, I'm looking for XYZ. Do you happen to have XYZ? Thanks so much. And we'll respond back. Sometimes right away if we know off the top of our head, and sometimes it takes a little bit if we're going to be digging around, because I have a lot of stuff here at the cottage too. And so sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get back to folks. But anyway, so you can always, if you're looking for head pins or things like that, jump rings, crimps, or beading wire, things that are kind of basics, just let us know. And as William is telling people, we're your friendly neighborhood bead store. And since he's there most of the time, it is a friendly bead store. And when it's me there, which isn't hardly ever, I'm a little bit more reserved. So less friendly, maybe, but still helpful, I think. All right. So here we go. Suzanne says, I've done that. No problem. AG is a full service bead store. Well, thank you. All right. So let's string up these drucks in the iced tea color. I love how, since they're transparent, you can see a little bit of that core, and it kind of makes them glow. I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but I think it's fun. And then I'm gonna put these on this head pin. So let's see about this. I mean, they're pretty basic, but I think those are fun. What do you think about that? I know it's kind of basic, but that's all right. I'm going to just make a couple of different things for this. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to bend the wire over and make a loop. Like so. And then I'm going to get my chain nose pliers out and make another, wrap these around and coil the wire around. Now, if you ever have any beads that kind of stick out in the way, you can always just turn your bead as you turn the wire. And that will help keep it kind of out of the way, and you can have full maneuverability around. So there's that as an option. So that's not the most beautiful wire wrap that I've ever done, but it will serve. So here's this. I'm just going to attach this to an ear wire, and then I'm done. So that's pretty simple, but I think it's nice to have a mix of more complex things and less complex things, especially when you're doing like sales or craft shows. Because sometimes you want things that you can kind of easy breezy move it out the door kind of stuff so that it doesn't take forever. We like to do different price points whenever we do shows, or if you need to make a quick gift for somebody. Sometimes you don't have all day to be, or several days to be making stuff. So I like to do make quick earrings sometimes, and those usually, if folks can't afford some of my larger pieces, they can get some of my necklace or my earrings. And so that makes it a little bit more affordable, and we have different price points for everybody. So um, I like to do that, but it's up to you. I know that these are not like anything like wildly, um, you know, super detailed in my execution. I just basically did one wire wrap and strung two beads on, and then opened and closed this little ear wire, and that's it. Easy peasy. All right. So here are the earrings that I made. That took less than a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes, because I was talking. Um, but if you need something quick, here you go. These are pretty quick. Let me set them in my hand. What do you think about that? Cynthia's watching. Cynthia, where can they find you later on this evening when they look for you for your live video? Somebody was asking. Eileen said they need some metal to pop. I don't know. I maybe. I kind of like them just simple. But that's me. Suzanne asked, what exactly is a drak? A drak is a round bead from the Czech Republic. Cynthia said, we are going to try and go on at 7. So check out the Green Girl Studios Facebook page when they're ready. And if you say, oh, these are too simple, you can always make these more complicated and jazz them up. You can layer on filigree. The only thing though is that you don't, because these are stone, you don't want them to get too heavy. I made a pair of earrings recently and they were really lovely, but they were super duper heavy. And so people, they would pick them up and they'd be like, oh, I love these, and then they would kind of weigh them in their hand, and then they're like, I love these on somebody else. So I will probably turn those into pendants. So just keep in mind weight, when you're making earrings. That's one of the reasons why I love things like vintage plastic, and resin and stuff like that, because you can get really big, expressive pieces that don't weigh very much, which is super handy if you're doing that kind of style. So there you go. Cynthia says you could always do a loop at the bottom and go crazy with dangles. Yeah, maybe. I think that's one of the fun thing about designing is that sometimes, you can do stuff that's super elaborate, or more elaborate, and do things that are simpler too. So you can have a mix of both, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know sometimes people are like, well, I would do this and I would do that. And that's one of the wonderful things about the kits, because you can kind of see, everybody gets the same kind of materials and everybody makes and does their own kind of thing with their designs and let their creativity shine. So I support that 100%. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right. So let's see. What are we going to do next? I kind of am in the mood to make a bracelet. So let's make a bracelet. All right. And I'm going to kind of maybe go a little bit more symmetrical than I normally do. And so we'll see how this works. I'm kind of laying things out. So Tracy is looking for your Facebook page. It's called Green, Green, Girl, Girl Studios, Studios, Green Girl Studios. There is a little octopus for the little logo. So look for that as a business page, and that should come right up. All right. And they'll go on around 7 o'clock. And if you have any other questions, Cynthia's here and she can answer them. All right, so I've got these. I don't know how I feel about these. I might save these for another project. Because I don't know. They go, but then they don't go. So maybe I'll save those for another project. So let's see. I think I'm gonna pick up a little class. So hold on just one moment while I go snatch one real quick. All right, so I've found this toggle set, and this toggle set is one of our Allegory Gallery Fine Pewter ones. It's gold plated. So if you go to our website at allegorygallery.com, this should pop up in the AG Fine Pewter section. And I think that's a really useful kind of clasp. So there you go. All right. So I think what I'm going to do, I want a little bit more drama for this piece. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off some lengths of chain. And I think I'm going to use some of those kind of cascades of chain to add a little bit more interest. So let's see. I'm going to add maybe just cut off, about 2 inches or so of this chain. And I'll set this off to the side. And then, well, actually, I'm going to use that as a pattern to cut off the next pieces of chain. They don't have to be exactly the same because if they're that close that they can measure off by the link, then they are far too close. So, you just want to make sure that you can make something that's pleasing to you in your design aesthetic. So I've got a couple pieces of chain here. And then I've got these drucks, which are the round check glass beads. And I've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. So 2, 4, 6, 8. All right. So here you go. Awesome. So I think I'm going to I had this white um, Softlex left over from one of the kits. So I'm going to string this up and see how it looks. I might switch to a different one if I think, because these are translucent, so you can see the core on those. So we'll see how it looks. And then if it looks fine, then I'll just keep going. But if not, then I will switch it out to a different color. That's one of the wonderful things about Softlex flexible beading wire is that it comes in so many different colors. It's a nylon coating over braided steel wire, so it not only is function or not only decorative, but it is functional, which I think is super handy dandy. Got to protect that steel core. All right, so let's see. I like that, so I'll leave it. All right, so I'm going to string up one little length at the very end of this chain right here. And then I'm going to string up this bead here. And then I'm going to string up the other end of the chain. And it's going to create these kind of little tassel-y draperies. So that's one way that you can incorporate a little bit of drama into a design. So it's not just ho-hum, or not necessarily, I shouldn't say ho-hum, but it's not necessarily just one level. You can kind of add a little bit more movement and a little more flair to it by adding a little bit of festoon. That's the word I was thinking of, festoon. So you can add a little bit of extra energy that way. And if you don't like it, you can always take it apart and try something new or different. So I think that's one of the wonderful things about jewelry making is, there's some techniques that you really, one and done kind of thing. You only have one shot at doing it. But for a lot of the string techniques like this, you can play around and see how it looks and, create that extra element of drama if you want or not. So, say you string this up and you're like, oh, I hate that. Well, you can always take it off. Or if you want to still have that kind of energy, but maybe not as much movement, make the chains a little bit shorter and then it won't kind of droop as much. I know sometimes when I'm working, um, I don't really like a lot of my bracelets to have a lot of dingle dangle action to them. So I like cuffs and things like that when I'm working, especially when I'm working in the studio, so nothing gets caught. So, you know, you kind of have to play around and see what is appropriate also for your design. And if you wanted to make this even fancier, you could, after you string everything up, go and add little wire wrapped head pins to each one of these links and really kind of make it extra festive that way. So lots of different options, and there's so many things that you can do. All right, so I'm going to use my trusty crimping pliers. There's two notches in these crimping pliers. There's one closest to the hand and there's the one closest to the tip. I just strung on one crimp tube and then I passed over one half of my toggle. I'm going to pass this back through my crimp tube. I'm going to make sure that the crimping or that the beading wire is not crossing over itself. You want to make sure that the beading wire is parallel to each other. And because this is a 2x3 crimp tube, you will have to go kind of bite it off in chunks, so to speak. So you can't, with this one, the length of this is not, it's shorter than the crimp tube. So you kind of have to go one and then move it down and then another and then maybe even another in the middle to create that divot. So you've got this and you created, I say that the notch closest to your hand makes the taco. Then you turn the taco on the side and then you can close it up. So there you go. And then what I do is, because this is so secure, it's really sturdy, is I just trim this close to the the base of it. Sometimes people leave extra just in case it falls out, but if you crimp properly, you shouldn't have to worry about that. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to slide this down and then I'm going to test the length because I didn't really do that. And this is a little bit large. So I may decide to take some of it off. Well, we'll see. Let's see. Let's try it. Well, actually, it might be fine. All right. So whenever I'm doing this, I'm going to cut a little bit extra wire. And this will make your life a whole lot easier. Sometimes I see where people, they cut very little because they're trying to be frugal and save money and save the wire. And I used to do that, but it used to drive me crazy. And I get so frustrated because I'd be trying to cajole this little end of the wire in, and it'd take 45 minutes just to get it through the crimp tube again, when really it could take just seconds and be a whole lot more satisfying. I think stringing beads is one of my favorite things. It's one of those meditative techniques that I can kind of just relax with, and there's something to be said about letting the beads kind of shine and let them do the talking. So what I just did now is I wrap this around my fingers, and what this does is it's kind of, I call it the wiggle test. And what this does is it kind of loosens up and makes sure that the tension is right. Because if you string this up too tight and then you go to bend it, even though the soft flex is super sturdy, it can break. So just keep that in mind. You don't want it to be super tight because you don't want a decorative bookmark. You want something that you can actually use and enjoy and will last a long time. So giving it that kind of space to breathe is an important thing to do, especially when you're designing so that it's a wearable piece. Sometimes, if you get a little bit conceptual or whatever, it's hard to kind of convert that. So anyways, just give it a little bit of room and you'll be fine. All right. And sometimes it looks weird when it's not being worn. You can see the flexible beading wire. So you'll see, like right here, it's not strung super tight, but when it bends, you won't be able to see that extra give in the wire. So see when it's flexed. Let's clear this off a little bit so you can see. Whoop. So what do you think about that? Super easy, super basic. I shouldn't say it's basic because basic kind of has a bad kind of connotation now. In that basic kind of means like, that I don't know how to describe that you're simple or something, like a basic Becky or whatever they say, and that the kids say these days. They say the darndest things. Anyway, so here you go. Here's an idea. Pretty quick. If you wanted to, I've got these brass and gold plated charms. These are not in that kit, But if you wanted to, these are also on the website. These are on allegorygallery.com if you wanted to look for these. But these would be super fun to hang from here, you know, maybe fill it up like a little charm bracelet. So you have a little bit of color in there also. So, if you don't like just a plain chain, you can kind of jazz it up a little bit. The chain that I use is not soldered on one side. So if you want to, you could open them up. And this loop here, this jump ring here is soldered. So you would want to open up your chain link and then put that on, and just make sure that your links are tightly closed when you're ready. So if you wanted to add a little bit of extra zhuzh, you could definitely do that. So that's one idea for you. And I think that's a nice thing. Not everything has to be overly complicated. I know sometimes when we're designers, we try to overthink things, but sometimes the simple things are beautiful as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I've got these little. They kind of they're check glass, and they have a dark core with a light kind of brown coating on top. And they kind of remind me of the bud of a Montana Centura Bluet. But they also kind of remind me of snakeskin a little bit, which I think is nice. Some people are into them, some people are not. So yeah, so I'm going to take this, and I've got some head pins here off to the side, and these are bald head pins. That's not bald like they are hairless, but they have a round little ball at the end instead of a flat head like this one. This one's been machine made, and it's kind of pop flat on there. And you can make these if you want by making these and then putting this into a jig and then smashing it flat. But, so here we go. We'll just do another simple pair of earrings. And you can kind of get a feel that you can get a lot out of a kit without having to do a ton of stuff. All right. Now, I do get a lot of questions about sequins, and I think this is a fun time when you cook. If you wanted to, you can insert one of those vintage sequins in between these beads here to add a little bit more texture, or to kind of sometimes the sequins have kind of an AB finish on one side, and they're a little bit holographic. So sometimes that can balance back a color or balance back light. So if you had those at your disposal, readily available, that might be fun to play with. You could put a spacer in. I tend to like a nice graduation of shape. So you have this small round at the bald head pin. You have this druck, and then you have this check glass piece. It creates a nice point to it. So I think that's an elegant kind of shape. But it's up to you. You can do with your kit whatever you want. So if you wanted to add kind of different things, you could add different things. Now, if you wanted to make these match with this bracelet, you could probably take a little piece of chain and put it in between and make it kind of hang down. So you can kind of have, let me see if I can get this piece of chain. So if you wanted to, you could do something like, you could have something like this. I don't know how much I love that or not. I don't know about that. That's not my favorite. So I'm going to take that off. Let's see if I swap it around. Not loving it, to be honest. Maybe if I did two, it could be nice. Two lengths. There was this designer, I don't know if she's still making stuff, but her name was Lisa Levine. And she was in that Lucky magazine like all the time. And she used to go and put different kinds of chain. Some of it that she would roll through the rolling mill and do like these big thick clusters of this dripping chain. And it was super messy, but kind of cool also. So just another way of adding texture. Now, another thing you can do if you want another kind of spacer idea is take a piece of chain and string it up every couple of lengths, like so, and then string your bead on, and it will have that kind of messy kind of loop. And people are like, how did you get that done? Um, and it's just a piece of chain that's been, you go through every couple of links if you want that kind of texture. That's kind of fun. I'm not into it, so I'm going to leave that off. But if you wanted to, you could definitely 100% do that. And yeah, so I'm just going to wrap these around and create a loop on this head pin. I know it's simple, but I think it's pretty cool still, even though it's not super frilly. When I was designing for books and magazines, they really liked the idea of having lots of techniques packed into one design. So sometimes I would put like everything in the kitchen sink. I put a lark's head knot here and do this thing there and do this thing there. And yeah, when I design mostly for myself or for my jewelry that I sell, I tend to kind of streamline stuff and edit it out just a wee bit. Um, so yeah. So I'm just gonna wrap this around. And I can tell that this head pin has been kind of work hardened a little bit, too much because it's really stiff. So I don't want it to break. So it's kind of a messy, messy wrap, but it is what it is kind of thing. All right. And if you ever have any loops that are a little bit wonky, where it's kind of more of an oval, just take it in here, put it on your round nose pliers, and then just gently push it down and walk it around. And that should round out your loops if you need that. And then I'm going to get an ear wire, some ear wires off to the side here, and just open these up at the bottom. These are called French ear wires, and they've got that little decorative coil. Some people like those coils, some people don't. I like them. They match the coil that's kind of in the wire wrap link. So, this is simple, but I think with the kit, you're getting a lot out of that kit. So, this is all one kit so far, with the addition of a couple things like chain and a toggle and ear wires and head pins. But otherwise, the beads, we still have a bunch of beads left over. I see a comment out of the corner of my eye. The kits are the basics, which is great, so people can add their own flair. I agree. So that's something that you can do if you want to. And really, I love the ideas of the kits because there's not, there are two different kinds of kits in my mind. There's the ones where you kind of create something and you try to replicate that design. And then you have ones that are kind of the ingredients, and then you kind of put your own spin on them. And whenever I'm cooking, I tend to be one of those cooks that I will loosely follow a recipe, but rarely do I ever follow it exactly. And I know that's probably people who are, who love recipes are like, oh my word, what's he doing? he writes and designs patterns for people to follow exactly in the magazines. What is he doing? Um, well, for me, I kind of like to put my own kind of flair on things. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So it's up to you. Um, all right. So these are the earrings that I made. These pretty simple. Look, these are the same, pretty much the same technique, but they look different in that the bead choices were different. Now, if you wanted to, you could, if you really like shoulder dusters, you could probably take and put a loop on the end of this and then have them connected and maybe have a nice kind of pivot point, and that might look nice. But some people, they either love shoulder dusters where they like that longer earring, and then some people just really don't. So, like they're super averse to them, which I don't get. But they're like, I hate those long things. It feels like spiders on my shoulders and tickling my my collarbone or whatever. So if that's not for you, then don't do that. But if you do like these, that could be pretty cute if you wanted to do something like that. So that's up to you. But already we have two pairs of earrings and a bracelet, and we're pretty good on time. So I've got this strand of check glass spikes, and I'm going to maybe alternate every other one. Let's see how it looks. Um, and we'll see. I'm just gonna test it out and see how it looks. Because you never know. Sometimes in your mind you can have this great idea, and then you put it into practice, and then it looks like not so great. So, um, you know. All right. So I've got, how many spikes do I have? One, two, three, four, five, six. So I'll maybe edit that to five. And then I have, let's see, how many do I have here? I'll have one, two, three, four, one, two, three, four, five, six, and then we'll do seven. And then let's see, how many do we have left over? 2, 4, 6, 7. So we have 7 left over. Let's make this 7. So we'll add an extra 2 on here. And then we'll add an extra 2 on here. How about that? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. How about that? We'll see. All right, and then I'll save these off to the side for another project. We've got a couple people watching. Diane says, the gray bead reminds me of a hot air balloon for some reason. I can see that. Like an old-timey one with the straps that crisscross. Susie's watching. Hello from Pasadena, Florida. Made it to my Airbnb. Got to get my beading stuff from the car. Oh, great. So I've got these, and I've got this chain left over. So how about we make we'll make a layered piece. How about that? So I've got this beading wire where I'm going to string up these drucks and these spikes, and I'm going to do them alternating between the rounds and the spikes. Just simple stringing, nothing overly complicated or overly fussy. but this I think is going to make a nice kind of contemporary style. You're going to have, it's going to be a layered piece. So we'll see how it works. We might have to add a little bit of extra, but we've got extra beads. So we'll see how it works. And then if it doesn't work, I can always cut it up. And, I've, the beads are still good. They don't go bad. Um, sometimes with beading, people get really nervous that they're going to be wasting. But really, you can only find out if something is going to work or not if you try it. I know some people are like, no, no, you can plan it out and it'll be just fine. But I'm more of a let's do it and then see kind of person. All right, I think that's pretty cute. I am going to get some more of these crimp tubes and I'm going to string this up. One crimp tube, one end of the chain. Now, I think I'm actually going to pause for a second. I'm not going to do directly on the chain. What I am going to do is I have um, some of these jump rings, and I'm going to use the jump ring, I think. And that way, if I don't like it, I can just easily take it off and it's not like married to the piece. So I'm just going to string this up on the end of this chain. Also, it's a little bit larger, so there's a little bit more room on the end of the chain because I don't want this to kind of bump up against each other. I want it to have like a little bit of free flowing motion. So I'm just going to pass this beading wire back through this crimp tube like so. And then I'm going to get my crimping pliers out and I'm going to add, I'm going to close it up, yo. Easy peasy, pot peasy. I saw that the door of the back porch just opened. So hopefully it's William. He should be done with work by now. Hopefully he's picking up stuff for dinner because I'm a little bit hungry. All right, so I'm going to trim this wire. And then I'm going to string this down to take a look. See how it looks. I like that. And then I'm going to cut off some more wire here. And I'm going to add that jump ring on the other side. All right. I see I'm having wraps for dinner. I'm excited. I like a good wrap. All right. So all I'm going to do is just attach this through there. Pass that back through the crimp tube. And again, I don't want to string this up too hard because I want there to be a little bit of flexibility to it. But if I do decide that I want this to be more rigid, because it doesn't necessarily have to move, I can have this be a little bit stiffer. So I don't want it to be too stiff because then you end up with these weird kind of up spikes. But if I kind of maneuver this so that they kind of lay flattish, then that's kind of, that'll be good too. I don't know if William is watching. Well, William is watching because he just answered. But if he could drop a link for the kit that I'm working with in case somebody wants to grab it, then that would be cool because I can't do it, unfortunately. It would be cool if I could just drop links that I'm thinking of in my mind. Diane says that she's having microwave burrito and chips and salsa for dinner. That sounds good. Um, I've been hankering for some Chipotle, yo. All right. So this one, it's got a little bit. So I'll put this down, and you can kind of see it, and it's flopping around a little bit. But once this is all strung up, it won't flop around as much, hopefully. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another layer of these spikes, but there's more beads on this bottom layer. So it will hang a little bit lower and you'll get a little bit of a layered look without having to wear multiple pieces. It'll all be in one piece. Amy found the link, I think. And William added it too. So there you go. We have tons of kits left over from Kit-a-palooza. So if you need a little burst of inspiration and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, I need somebody to help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, help me. You know what? We have these kits available and they're nice little kind of jump starts to creativity. And if you're thinking about trying a different color palette that's out of your wheelhouse, these are fun because then you don't have to buy a ton of stuff. You have just enough to work on a couple different projects and see if you like it. And they're fairly affordable, anywhere from $6 to $60. So if you're like, if you want to work with something fancier, you can work with something fancier, or if you want something that's like plastic, there are different ones that have plastic beads in them. So it's a nice way to try out new materials, push yourself creatively, and get those kind of creative juices flowing. I know sometimes, especially when you've got the summertime happening and there's lots of stuff to do, and you've got all these different things that you should be doing. It's hard to make time for yourself. I think it's really important that you make time for yourself so that you can stay creative and be centered in your happy place. And I think so. This is the idea of this, and I think we're going to need to add a little bit extra so that there's a little bit more space in between these two, because otherwise they kind of overlap, which is not a bad idea. I mean, in theory, you could go and make it like that and it could look like that, but I think it would look cuter if there's a little bit more space. So I'm going to string up a couple more beads and give it a little bit more extra length on that. I've got the extra beads, so why not, right? I can test it out, and if I just hate it, I can always go back in and correct it later. So let's see. Teresa said, can you send the link on YouTube? I'm just going to post it right here. And you can always go to our online store, that's allegorygallery.com, and look in the kids section. And there, like I said, there are a bunch of kits. I made 55 kits, so 55 different kits. So there's a lot to choose from, and there are a lot left over. So tons of beads available. I really, really, really love some of these kits that I made, and I'm surprised that more of them didn't sell. You all did put a healthy dent into them, so thank you for that, and thank you for all the support for helping us, keep going and be able to do what we're doing. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much to all of you out there who constantly support us. Financially and by sharing and liking and interacting with our posts on social media. and helping boost the signal and helping spread the word out there. So thank you so much for that. We really do appreciate it. We could not do what we do without you. So thank you so much. I know sometimes I sound a little bit like a broken record when I go on to these like gratitude binges, but really, I feel really fortunate and very blessed to be able to do what I do. And we live a pretty charmed life. We're not super fancy. We kind of have a humble lifestyle in a lot of ways. Um, but in other ways, we're able to live the dream, so to speak. So thank you all out there for allowing us to do that. Um, and I also wanted to say happy summer solstice to anybody who celebrates. It's the longest day of the year. Um, and one day I'd like to go and see the megaliths or um and like Stonehenge and see all that fun stuff. But maybe one day we'll see. Uh, Harry says I had something called kava for breakfast. It's a veggie smoothie. Marianne says it's Lisa for Wiccans. And yeah, so happy celebration, however you celebrate. I know we are a group of varied and differing traditions, but somehow creativity has brought us together. And we're able to, I think that's one of the beautiful things about our community is that everybody is so different. And there's some really beautiful relationships that have developed um, from our community, and I think it's a lovely thing, you know. But we're people who, on paper, wouldn't necessarily be able to sit down with one another. Can find common ground through beating and through making things and celebrating creativity. So I think that's lovely. All right, let's test this out, see how this looks. Whenever you're doing this, you do want to make sure that you get these on the right side. And what that means is if you cross over, I mean, it's not the end of the world because you can just undo this jump ring and kind of flatten it out. But you can also, it's a little bit more extra work then, right? So instead, just make sure that if you are on the bottom here, you start on the bottom here. And then that way you don't have to do extra work kind of correcting that. All right. Teresa says, I visited Stonehenge and loved it. Marion says, Stonehenge is amazing, but there are lots of other stone monuments. I think there are actually some here in Pennsylvania too, over towards the eastern side of the state. So that's pretty cool. I would love to do one here at Star Cottage Studio, but I need to save up some cash money dollars to do things that we need to do, as opposed to more decorative things. Michelle says, I try to come in when I can, even on replay, to like the videos on both Facebook and YouTube. It keeps you in the forefront. Well, thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Teresa. Teresa bought some kits during Kit-a-palooza. And yeah, there's a bunch of folks who said that they got kits. So thank you. And thank you for helping spread the word. It really does mean a lot to us. All right, so let me finish this up. I'm going to put this through this jump ring and pass this back through the crimp tube. I know sometimes with a string, it's not as interesting. Like, I shouldn't say it's not as interesting, but it's not as exciting as some of the other uh, techniques. You know, some of the other techniques that we do are a little bit more razzle dazzle. And with these, it's kind of like string one, string two, string three, string four. You know, so it's not uh, as exciting as like flame polishing copper, where there's a sense of danger and excitement with a fire. But you know, I think there's something to be said about quiet little, you know, practices that we enjoy. I know that I am somebody who likes both. So, and I've been doing a lot of metalsmithing lately, which has been wonderful. And I've been able to deepen my relationship with metal and get to know it a lot better and how to manipulate it and use it more, which has been fun. But also, it has made me appreciate kind of the simpler stringing techniques also. And it's so funny because like we went to this conference and there is some of these really accomplished metalsmiths and they were like fangirling over one of my necklaces. And I was like, well, it's just strung up. It's nothing like wildly radical. Like this one dude, he solders thousands of tiny little steel balls onto his pieces to create a granulated effect. And he was like totally gushing over one of my necklaces. And I was like, it's just strong. It's not like what you do. And so it was nice that he appreciated that. So this is kind of, I may have strung these a little bit too tight and I should have done a wiggle test beforehand. But this is kind of the vibe. Um, Michelle said if those spikes were white, they'd be smiling. Well, maybe it's like that Grundy willow where they've got the teeth that are those green and black. You know, it's like wah ha 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 ha. Or a Cynthia wanting the one of her creatures with little teeth was looking for a moss snack. So maybe not, you know, maybe we might have to add another layer to this to add a little bit of some extra to it. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm on the fence about this look. So we'll see if I continue. I did string this up a little bit too tight. So it is where some of the spikes want to flip. Um, so that's not ideal, but so yeah. Harry says if you got the points to go to the center, they would look like a shark mouth. And I think they would go to the center more so than hanging down. So they would look like that. Which is not a bad look. Actually, it's kind of got a little bit of geometric look to that. I'm not opposed to that look, but I don't know how well it would stay like in actual gravity situations. So let's see. I guess the only thing to do is try it on. And of course, I didn't put a clasp on this one. So let's flip this around. Diane says people are fascinated by the things they don't do. I know when I look at things, it makes me more impress me if it's something I know how. I know when I look at things, it takes more to impress me if it's something I know how to do. I agree. You know, it's the thing. It's like the pasture. The pastures are always greener on the other side. All right, let me flip this around. And let me see. I'll take Diane's comment off. And let's see if I can take the banner off too. I don't know about this. I'll have to play around with it. Of course, I'm using this thing as a mirror, and I can't tell which side is which, so that could also be one of the reasons. But the spikes are not necessarily hanging the right way in my mind, but the concept is there, so I may have to add some spacers to it, just so that there's a little bit more give. But you know what I mean. Either that or kind of focus on just kind of those layers, but we'll see. I don't know. A little jaggerbush, as they say here in southwestern Pennsylvania. But we made it. So we made this necklace. It's okay. I'm not committed to it. I can always take this apart and it's not going to hurt my feelings. But the idea is there. I think the kernel of the idea is there. So and another thing that I might try to do is put some paddles by hammering out some pieces of wire and curling one of the ends to make a loop, just to kind of add a little bit more kind of that spatially to go outward. And I think if I added spacers in between, it would lay a little bit easier because I strung them up pretty tight. So, uh, you know, that's the thing. But I do kind of like how the light is playing off of them, if you can see that, off of the spikes. It's got almost kind of a little bit of a military feel, you know, with like the chevrons. But we'll see. So we made a necklace today. We made a bracelet. And we made 2 pairs of earrings, all from one kit. So, and then we had beads left over. So probably enough to make another pair of earrings. So these little spikes and then these drucks. So in theory, I could make probably another pair of earrings out of these. Maybe just string them up simple, like loops, and hang them. Oh, I caught that, y'all. I caught that. Did you see that? I caught that. So maybe something like that. So there's a lot of different options. Maybe something simple where it's kind of like a more lateral design where it's all in one. What we would do to do that is we would put the headband, or not the headband, but a piece of plain wire through and kind of center it through the center of the spike so it doesn't kind of go off to the side, which you could do it off to the side and make a curve to it if you wanted to do something different. But I think that's pretty good for one kit, y'all. I see a couple folks saying things. Marion says, interesting to see what you come up with just one kit. Thanks. I always think it's so fascinating to see what people make using the same kind of ingredients. It's like, where will they take this idea? Will they do, more of an Italian recipe, or will they do more Chinese or Asian flavors? So it's always interesting to see what people will make with food. Same thing with bees. How will they take these same ingredients and make it their own? Cindy says, that's designing. I like watching the process, figuring out what works best. Me too. I think it's always good to give yourself grace when you're designing. I know sometimes it's hard when we have an idea and we have this, like, we want to execute it a certain way. I'm working on a piece right now and I can't really show it, but it's kind of commentary on some of the recent gun violence. And so I'm gonna see if it works out. Currently, it looks like bloody toilet paper, so I don't really know about that. But I think it's one of those things where we use our art to kind of work through different ideas. And so for me, it's important to kind of acknowledge that this is a problem and talk about it and use my forum for what I do, my platform to have these conversations. And I don't pretend to know all the answers. Um, you know, I do have opinions, but I'm open to the idea that if there's more information, those opinions and those perceptions could change. Like recently, I was on Twitter, and this person wrote something as like they were correcting another person's post. And they said, that's not a real word. And they went on and on about how it wasn't a real word. And you wouldn't say this if you did this. And somebody took a screenshot of the dictionary and they're like, actually, it is a real word. And instead of being like, oops, I made a mistake, sorry, they went and they were like, well, this is more commonly used and in this form, and it's more recently used in more scientific documents and blah, 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 blah. And basically, they could not admit that they were wrong. And so I never want to be in that position where I am so closed off to an idea. Like, I think that there's something to be said about sticking to your principles and being true to yourself and not compromising on some things. But on other things, I think it's super important to be able to be flexible and to acknowledge when you were wrong. Like this necklace did not work out exactly right. So I would not necessarily recommend you do it the way that I did it, but that kernel of idea is still there. So, anyways, I'm not going to die on this sword, just so you know. Some people, they're like, I'm going to defend it until there's nothing left to defend, even if it's not right. I see that a lot nowadays, and it boggles my mind. But anyways, so we'll see how that one piece turns out. Um, we'll see. I needed to do a lot of work on it, and the deadline was like yesterday. So, I think the early bird deadline was yesterday. So we'll see how much I can crank out before then. There's a bunch of other deadlines that I have to do. Julie says, I really like it. Well, thank you. Leslie says it needs a tongue. I don't know. What would a tongue look like? I don't know. Maybe. It has a hole in the tongue. Some people do. I knew this one person who split their tongue in half, and I was like, that's certainly commitment to that look. And they did it themselves too. And I was listening to this book on tape, and one of the characters was doing that. And I was like, boy, that sounds like an infection to me. But Terry says, I always find daggers and stabby doohickeys do what they want, not what we want. Yeah, I think so to a degree. But I knew. So if you look at a curve, like a smile, and then you look at the shapes of the beads, they're conical, so they're wedge shaped like this. If there's not enough room, they will want to flip because naturally they will want to go inward. You know what I mean? So if there's a curve, those spikes will want to fit in like this because the widest part going up to the thinnest. When you look at the radius of a curve, it comes down like this, like spokes. So it will naturally want to fall into those spoke shapes. So to try to get them to go outward, I should have added more space in between. And I think if I would have put maybe little rondelles in between some of the beads, it would have created an extra little bit of room so that it would want to fall naturally kind of in a fan shape as opposed to spokes on a wheel. So I think there is something to be said about like geometry and engineering when it comes to jewelry design, and we're problem solving on a very small scale. I think sometimes people don't give themselves enough credit when they make these amazing pieces, and there is that kind of structural kind of component to it. Um, so, you can work through those things in a kind of more systematic and logical way. I'm not that kind of person. It comes to me like after the fact. Some people, they can process that stuff before they do it. Me, I just have to get my hands dirty, so to speak, and do it. And then if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, then I'll just take it apart. Diane says, I like the concept, just need some tweaking on the execution to get it to hang right. Yep. And I think that if I wanted to keep going with this, I could exaggerate some of the forms too, so that it would look less like a jagged smile. So maybe putting those paddles or putting some, little zigzaggy wires as like dangles to kind of accentuate that motion. Maybe that's the option. So we'll see. But again, I'm not committed to this design, so it's not like I'm going to lose sleep over it. Leslie says, I like it too. It's got an edgy feel. I don't give a F kind of vibe. I think that's because of the spike. There was a trend a couple years ago that was like post-punk, and everybody was putting spikes on everything, which was kind of cool. Like, I like it. Like that kind of Vivienne Westwood with a plaid, clashing plaid prints and spikes and the Sex Pistols kind of vibe. That, kind of cool, kind of Cruella style, if you know what I'm talking about. Harry says, cool stuff. Suzanne says, clap, clap, clap. Lorraine says, amazing what you can do with the pieces. Yeah, and I think it's even cooler when you can take those ideas too, and there's a group where people make stuff, and then and kind of see where those different ideas take people. Terry says, you are so right. You could give 10 people identical kits and come up with 10 very different creations. Yeah, that's kind of the idea where the Allegory Gallery Design Challenge group came from. Is they came from the design kits. But also, I noticed at the time when we started doing the design kits, which is 14, 15 years ago, we've done over 100 design challenge kits now at this point. But I noticed at the time there was a lot of people who were getting super upset about copying. And that's, it happens. And it happens in a lot of creative communities. And in my mind, I wanted to, instead of kind of attack the problem from like, calling people out or, making them, ostracizing them, I wanted to instead encourage people to explore their own creativity and draw inspiration from other things too. So we had a group called Inspired by Reading, which has kind of been dormant over COVID, but it's our book club, and you read a book and then you make something inspired by the book. And for me, I kind of wanted to encourage people to think of inspiration not only coming from other people's designs that are already made. Like, it's so easy to go on like Pinterest and type in jewelry designs and see all these amazing designs come up, and then be tempted to be like trying to duplicate somebody else's work, which is super good if you're learning and you're going to keep it to yourself and use it only for your own purposes. It's another thing when you're going to try to make money off of somebody else's ideas. I think that that's not cool. But there are so many places where inspiration can happen. And I wanted to, with these kinds of groups, is to kind of reinforce that, those ideas are out there, and that you can draw creativity and inspiration from all over the world and all over, from the tiniest things. And there's a beauty in that kind of individual storytelling. So there you go. Terry says, which is the whole reason that kits are amazing. I need to get mine out and make something. Well, in case you didn't know, we have a make along on Thursday. Thursday at 7. I think 7. I'm going to drive home really fast because that's one of my last days at Contemporary Crafts. So I'm going to be there in Pittsburgh on Thursday. So I'm gonna have to drive back, and then we're gonna do the live. Michelle says, I would really like to see you work with sequins too. Yeah, I've done a couple of different things and I've talked about them, but I really haven't really gotten too in depth with them. But yeah. Jacqueline says, open-minded minds rocks, or open-minded rocks. So there you go. All right. So hopefully you all had fun today. We made this necklace, we made this bracelet, and we made these 2 pairs of earrings, all from the kit. And we had some leftover. I may make another pair of earrings off camera and show them in the comment sections here on Facebook. So if you want to see the last pair of earrings, head into our Facebook page and look at the next thing. And then tonight, Cynthia's going to be going on probably pretty soon. So be sure to tune in and check out what she's got on offer. I know I'm going to be watching because I like to support my family. And Cynthia is one of those people, and Azalea and the whole family actually is super creative, and they're always coming up with things and making things, and it's always fun to see what they're working on. So definitely tune in tonight and see what they got going on. I know I will be, so check it out. All right, I see Suzanne said Monique sale soon. Maybe next week. And the reason why I say that is I want people's bank accounts to recover. Because I know some people, they did some damage during the check glass sale, and then they did some more damage during the gemstone sell down. So we'll see. I think William may do some more gemstones tomorrow. I made a little pile for him, so maybe next week. We'll see. Rana says, I'm also interested in seeing how sequins and jewelry making. I can't remember if I did a dedicated video here or not, but I showed, I know I showed how to do brick stitch and then applying sequins on top of brick stitch. So that's one of the videos in theory I have a vague recollection of doing. But there are cool things, like our friend Gail Crosman Moore, she strings up a whole hank of these on memory wire and creates a very lovely structure using that's lightweight, and I think is pretty cool. And you could adapt that in your own way by doing it in segments or something else. And I like sequins to add a little bit of color and flair whenever you've got transparent beads and you're working with transparent beads. So you can sandwich those in between. You can use them as bead caps. So it just really depends. Laura Lee Colton, if you don't know her, she's a designer based out of Chicago. She gets our mermaid scale kind of sequins or vintage sequins and makes these beautiful chandelier sequin or earrings where they kind of all dangle down, and because of the play of light, they kind of twinkle and shimmer and shine with the movement. So there's so many different people doing wonderful things with sequins. So there's a lot of options. I know some people, they're like, what's this? And the kits. But I think they're really cool. I especially love vintage sequins. There used to be this old cowboy dude who would come to the shows, and he would have these like crusty cardboard boxes. And at first, you'd be like, what is going on? When everybody else has all these like pristine tablecloths and lights, and they would having all these like crystals and gemstones and stuff glittering in your eyes, and very polished and pressed. And he would come over here and have like these very disintegrating boxes, and you'd be like, what's this? And you'd kind of have to dig around. And he had tons of sequins, and that's kind of where my love of sequins came from as a jewelry making material. I kind of want to have my friend Courtney Powell come. She's going to come by this weekend, so um, maybe I can convince her to do a little talk on sequins. I'd be like, I'll give you $5 to talk about sequins. But she cuts her own sequins and uses a technique to attach them to screens, or to mesh. So that's pretty cool too. Michelle says, fun times, Andrew. Thank you. I'll be looking for Cynthia as well. Suzanne says, I get that. Janet Weber says, yes, please. My account does need to recover. So yeah, we'll space it out a little bit, because I have a ton of different colors that we don't have in the shop. At one point, we got a whole table full of Monique, and I thought that would last us forever and always. And we have like 2 hanks left of that from that whole table being covered. So Diane says, yes, please let my bank account recover. Yeah, so I understand, especially nowadays. Like, when I had to fill up the pump the other day, and I was like, holy guacamole. I'm supposed to go into Pittsburgh. Originally, I was going to try to go a couple days a week. And then the price of gas started going up. So I was like, dude, I can't go as much as I want, because I only get $100 stipend a month for this. And that's for materials, and my gas already exceeds that. So I only got to go really 1 day a week, which is kind of disappointing, because I wanted to go more. But it's hard to do everything and afford everything and do everything. It's kind of been an all hands on deck kind of situation, especially when they blocked off the parking in front of the shop. We had to scramble around, and we're still making up for that. So, yeah, so, it is what it is. I wish I could have done more there, but maybe things will change. You never know. So Marion said, thank you for the demo. Thank you for watching. Teresa says, thank you. She also says, love Flair, plus, plus, plus. Shannon, they are the original he, she. So cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody. We appreciate all of you out there. Hopefully you all have a great rest of your week. William will be back tomorrow. Maybe he'll have some gemstones. So I know a lot of people's bank accounts probably already stretched to the max now, but maybe put a couple bucks aside for that, because we pulled some really great things that I think y'all will really enjoy. So yeah. So maybe tomorrow he'll have some gemstones for you all. And yeah, tune in tonight to see what Cynthia's got cooking. I'm sure that whatever she's working on will be most excellent. So I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.